Association of Honor Societies, leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sophia. It is now my great pleasure at this time to introduce Sergeant Signe Munfrum, 34th Infantry Division Band. Sergeant Munfrum will now sing our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. Please remain standing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Sergeant, for that performance. Please remain standing. The invocation today for today's assembly will be offered by Rabbi Simon Glazer of Temple Israel in Minneapolis and by Imam Makram El-Amin of Masjid An-Nur Islamic Centers of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Please remain standing.
At a time of year when the days grow shorter and colder, our various faith traditions naturally turn to sources of light and warmth as religious symbols. But no matter what holiday one is celebrating, we know that ultimately light and warmth are generated most effectively by the love we show one another, by the blessing of family togetherness, by the engaged spirit of community in which we care for our fellow Minnesotans. As we prepare to enter another calendar year with new leadership locally and nationally, and with a renewed sense of purpose, let us remember that ultimately a healthy future depends upon every American doing their part to make society function in an equitable manner. As we cast our votes today, may we understand that our fortunes do not rise or fall with the election of a single person or even with the prominence of a particular party, but with the goodwill of each and every citizen of this great state and this blessed nation to do what is right, to seek peace and justice. Dear God, help us keep our eyes and our ears firmly focused on the needs of our constituents, thinking less about politics and more about the virtue and responsibility of representing thousands of people who face the coldness of despair and the darkness of an unsure future. Surely this will be the path to the warmth of fellowship and the light of justice. Amen.
With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, the praise belongs to God, the Lord and cherisher, the sustainer of all the worlds, the most gracious, the most compassionate, the sole judge in the day of judgment. You alone do we serve, and you alone do we seek assistance. Guide us all upon the way that is straight, the way that earns your favor, not the way that incurs your wrath, nor let us be among those who go astray. Lord of all, Lord of justice, Lord of mercy, Lord of forgiveness, we ask that you to guide us in our great state of Minnesota and in our great country of the United States of America. We ask you to bless us all to do our part, whether as faith leaders, our electoral college, or the great citizens of the state of Minnesota. We ask that you have mercy upon us and think about all of us in this day of time. We ask that you make us shepherds of that which you will be pleased. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you both, Rabbi and Imam. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your right to be here and to express your opinion, but we do have a constitutionally and statutorily mandated process that we do have to get through. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Dayton was supposed to be here this morning to give some opening remarks. Unfortunately, he sends his regrets and he is unable to make it here today, although he wishes he could be here, but he just can't make it. So, as Minnesota Secretary of State, I am honored to welcome you today to this 2016 Assembly of Presidential Electors and Alternate Electors for the state of Minnesota. We are fortunate to have with us today a number of elected officials. Please hold your applause until I introduce all of them. These are folks who have told us in advance that they would be here. Senator Leroy Stump, Senator Jim Carlson, Senator Scott Dibble, Senator Susan Kent, Senator-elect Steve Swatzinski, Representative John Considine, Representative Mike Freiberg, Representative Lori Halverson, Representative Jerry Hertaus, Representative Melissa Portman, Representative Sandra Mason, Representative Bob Vogel. Also, please welcome Blake Johnson, representing the Prairie Island community, who's here as well. Thank you all for coming. If there are any other elected officials whom I've missed, please stand or wave and be recognized. Representative Ron Earhart. Senator-elect and Representative Carolyn Lane. Yes, Senator Alice Johnson. Representative Paul Rosenthal. Thank you, one and all, for being here. But, these are not the only distinguished guests who are with us here today. I am particularly pleased to have over 160 high school students and teachers here from across our state. Now, that is new this year. That's never happened. That is new this year because I thought it was particularly important to extend an invitation for this event to our next generation of Minnesota voters and leaders. We today are about to witness history in the making. This afternoon, 49 other states and the District of Columbia are doing exactly what we are doing right now. Today, Minnesota is going to officially cast its 10 Electoral College votes for the next president and vice president of the United States. As many of you know, there are 538 electors nationwide. I have to ask the folks in the back of the room, we all respect your right to express your opinion, but we do have, as I said, a legally mandated process we go through. Thank you for lending your voice to the proceeding.
What will happen if you don't?
For the sake of our children,
It
please
takes
vote until all information.
It takes a majority or 270 electors to win the presidency. And we in Minnesota will cast 10 of those electoral votes. Now, the Constitution, as you probably know from your civics class, the Constitution created the Electoral College, but the Constitution is silent. The Constitution is silent as to how each state chooses to allocate its electoral votes. Minnesota long ago chose to do what 47 other states already do. That is to say, we allocate all of our state's electoral votes to the winner of the statewide popular vote. That's how we do it. That's how 47 other states do it. But not all states use that method. 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, allocate their electoral votes according to which candidate wins each congressional district in their state.
Electors can refuse to vote.
This allows states to split their electoral votes amongst different candidates. Now, some people have suggested that more states move to the Maine and Nebraska model. Others have suggested a move to the national popular vote model, by which states would agree to award their electoral votes to the overall winner of the national popular vote, instead of to the winner of the popular vote in that particular state. And then, of course, there are others who want to abolish the Electoral College entirely. Now, whether we as Americans or we as Minnesotans wish to change the way that we select future presidents and vice presidents will be an ongoing subject of debate. But our law in Minnesota today is clear, and today we honor that law. Of course, today's event comes after a long national election campaign, and I think many in this room would agree that it was a particularly significant campaign, and it was uniquely intense.
With foreign infiltration.
The incumbent president was term limited, so we knew we were going to elect a new president no matter what. And there was another factor at play, and let's be honest. We had two major party nominees who inspired very strong feelings. That's just a fact. Now that kind of intensity, those strong feelings, that can lead to opposite kinds of results. So sometimes that kind of intensity can depress voter turnout because voters may feel overwhelmed or disillusioned or even disgusted. But sometimes that kind of intensity leads to higher voter turnout because voters feel an urgency to act or to make their voices heard. And in Minnesota, we chose action. We chose to turn out to vote in very high numbers, and we made history in the process. Now let me just tell you a few of the ways that Minnesotans made history this year. More Minnesotans than ever before, over 670,000, cast their ballots early by voting absentee, thanks to a new law called No Excuses Absentee Voting, which allows anyone to vote early for any reason. And I know there are a lot of people in this room who were involved, as was I when I was in the legislature, in getting that legislation passed on a bipartisan basis. More Minnesotans than ever before were registered to vote on Election Day, thanks to a new law that allows people to register to vote online. More Minnesotans than ever before cast a general election ballot. Nearly 3 million people in Minnesota, a record. And lastly, my personal favorite, but first some background. Many of you know that Minnesota has an outstanding history of high voter turnout. In fact, for 9 elections in a row, Minnesota was #1 in the country in voter turnout until 2014, until 2 years ago. After a winning streak of #1s, in 2014 we slipped a bit to #6 in the country. Now, the #6 spot was still decent, right? If you're grading on a curve, 6 out of 50, not bad. But not quite up to our usual high Minnesota standards. So, during the past year, my office challenged Minnesotans to get us back to #1. Thousands of partners throughout the state worked to reach that goal, and in my office, we approached voter engagement in a fundamentally different way. We tried new approaches, we took advantage of the new laws that I mentioned, and we reached out to new communities. And I'm happy to say that when the ballots were counted in all the states on November 8th, Minnesota was again #1 in the country in voter turnout. 74.7% of all eligible Minnesotans voted in this year's election. Now, being #1 in America is saying something, and that should make us proud. We set a goal, and we reached it. But more importantly than that, we set an example for other states and for people in our own state, like many of you, who are not yet eligible to vote, but who will one day be eligible to vote, perhaps in the next couple of years. Now, we can stay on top, and we can lead the way for America if we step up, stand up, and commit to being voters. Let's recognize all the people right now throughout Minnesota who helped get Minnesota back to #1 in voter turnout. Now, later on in the ceremony, I'll highlight the important role that high school students and education leaders played in making 2016 a successful election season in Minnesota. But for now, let's proceed with the official business of this assembly. We will now proceed to the roll call of electors. Before beginning the roll call, let the record show that in accordance with Minnesota Statute Section 208.06, the presidential electors met at the Legislative Reference Library in the State Office Building yesterday morning and notified the governor that they were ready to fulfill their duties as electors. The electors were then provided with a certificate listing the names of all the electors and all the alternates. I will now proceed to the roll call of electors in the order of congressional district. Electors, please respond by saying the word present when your name is called. Congressional District 1, Fred Knudsen.
Present.
Congressional District 2, Roger Gerke.
Present.
Congressional District 3, Marge Hoffa.
Present.
Congressional District 4, Raymond Hess.
Present.
Congressional District 5, Muhammad Abdurrahman.
Present.
Congressional District 6, Betsy O'Berry.
Present.
Congressional District 7, Mike Wammer.
Present.
Congressional District 8, Mary Murphy.
Present.
State at Large, Jules Goldstein.
Present.
State at Large, Sherry Pugh.
Present.
Roll call shows that all 10 electors are present. Let the record also show that in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 208.06, the alternate presidential electors met at the Legislative Reference Library in the State Office Building yesterday morning and notified the governor that they were ready to fulfill their duties as alternate electors. The alternate electors were then provided with a certificate listing the names of all the alternate electors. I will now proceed to the roll call of alternate electors in the order of congressional district. As before, please respond with the word present and stand if you are able when your name is called. Congressional District 1, Linda Wunderlich.
Present.
Congressional District 2, Roxanne Mindeman.
Present.
Congressional District 3, James Williams.
Present.
Congressional District 4, Megan Thomas. Ms. Thomas has informed us that she will not be present this afternoon. Congressional District 5, Jill Garcia.
Present.
Congressional District 6, Mel Honorud.
Present.
Congressional District 7, Lillian Ortendahl.
Present.
Congressional District 8, Jim Nardone.
Present.
State at Large, Joel Heller.
Present.
State at Large, Artis Wexler.
Present.
The roll call shows that 9 of the 10 alternate electors are present. On December 13th, 2016, Governor Dayton signed a document entitled the Certificate of Ascertainment. This certificate sets forth the official and final results of the votes cast for all presidential electors and alternate electors. 3 copies of the certificate have been forwarded to the Archivist of the United States and were received by that official before today as required under federal law. Federal law also requires my office to deliver 6 additional copies of the certificate to you today so that we can attach copies of this document to another certificate that will set forth the results of the presidential and vice presidential ballots that you will cast later today. I have also been advised that these 6 copies of the Certificate of Ascertainment are present here in this chamber for your inspection. The Certificate of Ascertainment lists the official election returns for all presidential candidates who received votes in Minnesota and has particular significance for our work here today. It has a special place in this process in that it reflects the will of all the voters of Minnesota who participated in the presidential election. Gary Poser, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections from the Office of the Minnesota Secretary of State Elections Division, will read these official vote totals before we proceed. Mr. Poser.
The returns of the votes cast for presidential electors at the general election were canvassed and certified by the State Canvassing Board on the 29th day of November, 2016, in accordance with the laws of the state of Minnesota, and that the candidates receiving votes for presidential elector and the number of votes cast for each such candidate at the general election is as follows. The electors pledged to Richard Duncan and Ricky Johnson, declared write-in candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Eric Gerhardt and Ken Vernig, declared write-in candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Darren Lynch and Jackie Dukowitz, declared write-in candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Matthew Roberts and Charles Claus, declared write-in candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Platt Robertson and Scott Falls, declared write-in candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Derek Schumacher and Ross Wendling, declared writing candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Keith Richard Snell and Russell LeBeau, declared writing candidates, received 1 vote. The electors pledged to Ben Hartnell and Dave Marshall, declared writing candidates, received 2 votes. The electors pledged to Roger Koplitz and John Fury, declared writing candidates, received 2 votes. The electors pledged to Srinivasa K. Malapati and Srapriya Malapati, declared writing candidates, received 2 votes. The electors pledged to Micah Payur and Joshua Payur, declared writing candidates, received 2 votes. The electors pledged to Michael L. Mike Smith and Daniel White, declared writing candidates, received 3 votes. The electors pledged to Joe Schreiner and Joe Moreau, declared writing candidates, received 4 votes. The electors pledged to Arthur E. Sidner and Sandra Arsaman, declared writing candidates, received 4 votes. The electors pledged to Kirk Webtrek and Lori Motzko, declared writing candidates, received 4 votes. The electors pledged to Jerome S. White, Jerry White, and Niles Namath, declared writing candidates, received 10 votes. The electors pledged to Gloria LaRiva and Eugene Courier, declared writing candidates, received 12 votes. The electors pledged to Clifton Roberts and Breeze Harper, declared writing candidates, received 15 votes. The electors pledged to Emilio Solstick and Angela Walker, declared writing candidates, received 15 votes. The electors pledged to Lawrence Kotlikoff and Edward Leamer, declared writing candidates, received 17 votes. The electors pledged to Dennis Andrew Ball and Richard Sanders, declared writing candidates, received 24 votes. The electors pledged to Tom Heffling and Steve Shulin, declared writing candidates, received 28 votes. The electors pledged to Daniel Muffaletto and Jesse Ventura, declared writing candidates, received 29 votes. The electors pledged to Chris Keniston and Deacon Taylor, declared writing candidates, received 31 votes. The electors pledged to Henry Bartlett and Condoleezza Rice, declared writing candidates, received 41 votes. The electors pledged to Jeffrey Ryan Wharton Sr. and Amy Klobuchar, declared writing candidates, received 53 votes. The electors pledged to Michael Andrew Maturin and Juan Antonio Munoz, declared writing candidates, received 244 votes. The electors pledged to Roque de la Fuente and Michael Steinberg, American Delta Party, received 1,431 votes. The electors pledged to Allison Kennedy and Osborne Hart, Socialist Workers Party, received 1,672 votes. The electors pledged to Darrell Castle and Scott Bradley, Constitution Party, received 9,456 votes. The electors pledged to Dan R. Basic and Mark Elworth Jr., Legal Marijuana Now, received 11,291 votes. The electors pledged to Jill Stein and Howie Hawkins, Green Party, received 36,985 votes. The electors pledged to Evan McMullen and Nathan Johnson, Independents, received 53,076 votes. The electors pledged to Gary Johnson and William Weld, Libertarian Party, received 112,972 votes. The electors pledged to Donald J. Trump and Michael R. Pence, Republican Party of Minnesota, received 1,322,951 votes. The electors pledged to Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine, Democratic Farmer Labor, received 1,367,716 votes. Having received the most votes cast in Minnesota, the electors and alternate electors pledged to Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine have been designated by the Certificate of Ascertainment as presidential electors and alternate electors for the state of Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Poser. All electors are present, which constitutes a quorum. Electors, please rise if you are able, and remain standing for the administration of your oath. The written oath is on the table in front of each elector.
Delay the vote.
Please raise your right hand. And after I say "I," please state your name and then continue to repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will discharge faithfully my duties as elector for President and Vice President of the United States in and for the State of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability.
Delay the vote.
Please be seated. The written oath is in front of you for your signatures. Please sign this document now, and our staff will notarize your signatures and collect the documents. Thank you, electors. As required by state law, your signed oath will be placed on file in my office. We will now proceed to the balloting for President and Vice President of the United States. Under the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, a distinct ballot must be taken for President and a distinct ballot taken for Vice President. I will now ask that one blank ballot for President and one blank ballot for Vice President be distributed to each elector. When your ballots, please cast your votes. After completing your ballot, please hold them until I call upon you. If you make a mistake and spoil your ballot, please raise your hand and we'll provide a replacement ballot.
Delay the vote.
I think those ballots are already spoiled.
Fair luck. Do you think you have enough information about the influence of Russia on this election before you cast this ballot?
Yes.
Is it easier just to vote and forget about it?
Federalist Papers number 68 plans for this. Right.
Don't have to vote.
How will you remember this day? How will you remember this choice? Will you be proud to participate in this?
With a lot of power in your hands right now, you can make some history here this morning. You don't have to certify this.
They always tell us one vote matters. Every vote matters.
Yours actually does.
Don't do it. Please.
Ask for an intelligence briefing.
Get all the facts first, then vote.
You have the power to make history today.
Foreign influence over our election is not a bipartisan issue. Our democracy is at stake here.
I will now call upon each elector in order of congressional district. Please approach the podium, stand to my right, and show me your ballots. Congressional District 1, Fred Knudsen.
Mr. Knudsen, please do not vote.
Mr. Knudsen has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you, sir. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 2, Roger Gierke.
Mr. Gerke, please do not vote.
Mr. Gierke has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 3, Marge Hoffa.
Ms. Hoffa, please do not vote.
Hoffa has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 4, Raymond Hess.
Mr. Hess, please, not vote.
Mr. Hess has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 5, Mohammed Abdurrahman.
Mr. Abdul-Rahman, please, not vote.
Minneapolis, you don't have to vote. Are we making history?
Thank you, thank you. Somebody has a contest, somebody has a contest. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, under Minnesota law, we have what is known as a faithless elector law, which prohibits any elector from voting for a candidate other than the candidate either for president or vice president to which that elector is pledged. The consequence for voting for someone to whom that person is not pledged is simply removal of that elector as an elector and putting in that person's place instead the designated alternate elector. So pursuant to Minnesota law, Minnesota statute, I will do that right now. And I conferred with Mr. Abdurrahman, and he understands that is the consequence of his actions. So this ballot, these ballots for President of the United States and for Vice President of the United States will not be counted. So instead, at this moment, I will now officially appoint the alternate elector for Congressional District 5. Sir, you may be seated. Thank you. The alternate elector for Congressional District 5 is Jill Garcia. Garcia? Actually, I would ask then if you could just substitute, please. Thank you. And Ms. Garcia, I would ask that you stand, please, if you're able, and raise your right hand. And after I ask you, just say your name at the beginning. After I say I, just state your name and then continue to repeat after me. I,
Jill Garcia,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will affirm the Constitution of the United States,
Support the Constitution.
support the Constitution of the United States,
And the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
And that I will discharge faithfully
and that I will discharge faithfully
my duties as elector
my duties as elector
for President and Vice President of the United States,
for President and Vice President of the United States,
in and for the state of Minnesota,
in and for the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
I believe that Mr. Burblack has handed out a ballot for President, oh, I'm sorry, no. You must sign the oath, as the other electors have, and then it will be notarized. Ladies and gentlemen, what I will do as our newly sworn-in elector, Ms. Garcia, is casting her ballots, and I will continue in the same order that we had been in before the interruption. So I will continue now with Congressional District 6, Betsy O'Berry.
Ms. O'Barry, you do not need to vote.
Ms. O'Berry has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 7, Mike Wammer.
Mr. Warner, please do not vote. Please, sir.
Mr. Wammer has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you, sir. You may return to your seat. Congressional District 8, Mary Murphy.
Ms. Murphy, please do not vote.
Ms. Murphy has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. State at large, Jules Goldstein.
Mr. Goldston, please do not vote.
Mr. Goldstein has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. State at large, Sherry Pugh.
Ms. Pugh, please do not vote.
In honor of my mother, Orlando Pugh, and my grandmother, Laura Smith.
Ms. Pugh has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. We will now revert to Congressional District 5, Jill Garcia.
Ms. Garcia, please, do not vote.
Ms. Garcia has cast a vote for Hillary Clinton for president and a vote for Tim Kaine for vice president. Thank you. You may return to your seat. The results of the ballot show 10 votes for President for Hillary Clinton of the state of New York and 10 votes for Vice President for Tim Kaine of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Federal law requires that the electors sign 6 originals of a certificate which sets forth the votes cast by the electors for President and Vice President. I will now ask that those certificates of vote be distributed for your signatures. I'm told, ladies and gentlemen, that because of the change in proceedings, we need a short pause so that we may modify a number of the documents accordingly. So we will have a short pause. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to resume the assembly. We are resuming the assembly. I will repeat again that federal law requires that the electors sign 6 originals of a certificate which sets forth the votes cast by the electors for President and Vice President. I will now ask that these certificates of vote be distributed for the electors' signatures. law also requires that an original copy of the certificate of ascertainment be attached to each copy of the certificate of vote. And I will direct that this be done after you have affixed your signatures, which you have. We will now proceed to complete the final document required today, the transmittal of the presidential electoral vote. Federal law also requires that the elector sign 6 originals of a certificate transmitting the results of the ballot cast today. I now ask that these documents be distributed for signatures. Please sign the certificate above your name, and the staff will collect them after you are finished. These original documents are distributed to several offices. One copy is mailed directly to the President of the United States Senate. 2 copies are mailed to the Archivist of the United States. 2 copies are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State. 1 copy is mailed to Judge John R. Thunheim, Chief Judge for the Federal District Court for this district. The presidential and vice presidential business of this assembly has now concluded, but we're not done with this ceremony quite yet. As I mentioned earlier, Minnesota owes a special thanks to its education leaders and its high school students, including those of you here today. This past year, my office looked at new strategies in an effort to help get Minnesota back to #1 in voter turnout. And we decided to focus on areas where we knew there was room to improve or room to grow. And one of those areas was among our youngest voters, who traditionally vote at rates that are far behind the rest of the population. So we knew that we needed to get good habits started early, to get young people thinking of themselves as voters before they actually were voters and eligible to vote. So we came up with the idea of holding Minnesota's first ever statewide mock election for high school students. The idea was that we would limit it to just one contest, President and Vice President of the United States, and we called it simply Students Vote 2016. We convened a group of education leaders from around the state to discuss whether the idea could work. Support from the group was unanimous and enthusiastic, but one person from that group distinguished himself in his support for the new initiative. David Adney is the executive director of the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals. He attended that initial meeting, but he did a lot more. He was committed to making Students Vote 2016 a success. He advised us about how to structure the program, how to reach out to schools across Minnesota, and even how to promote the initiative. We followed his advice, and we benefited from his own personal outreach to schools. Now, when we first came up with the idea of Students Vote 2016, we set a goal of signing up 100 high schools across Minnesota, 100. But with Dave's help and encouragement, we signed up 281 high schools across the state of Minnesota. While Mr. Adney helped us to sign up schools, the students of Minnesota really delivered. Over 96,000 high school students voted in the mock election for president and vice president. All of the high school students here participated in some way. Some of you held debates or discussions about the candidates in your school. Some of you were involved in the technical part of running the mock election at your school. All of you made the Students Vote 2016 initiative a huge success. And I hope in the process, all of you were inspired about the years ahead when you will be able to cast your official vote as an adult. To demonstrate the appreciation of my office for their efforts to help get good habits started early in our high school students, I'm proud today to give the highest honor that a Secretary of State can award. It's called the Medallion Award from the National Association of Secretaries of State. The Medallion Award recognizes outstanding achievements in areas like elections and civic education. So it is my honor today to present 2016 Medallion Awards from the National Association of Secretaries of State to David Adney of the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals, and a Medallion Award to the students of Minnesota, represented here today by Brooke Chesley of Marshall High School, President of the Minnesota Association of Student Councils. Please come up to receive your Medallion Award and your well-deserved congratulations. I want to thank everyone for being here and participating in this 40th Assembly of the Electoral College in Minnesota. Our activities today have continued a long tradition of electoral politics. We have conducted an important constitutional function, but we have also conducted an important cultural function as well, by showing our commitment to the peaceful transition of power. In too much of the world, a change in government comes only through force, but we Americans don't do that. We have our differences, of course, but we're committed to the rule of law. Whether we agree or disagree with the outcome that the laws have produced, we respect and honor that outcome nonetheless. Again, I want to thank the Minnesota State Patrol Honor Guard, Imam Makram Elamine and Rabbi Sim Glazer, Minnesota National Guard Sergeant Munfram, Pledge of Allegiance leader Sophia Peterson, the electors and alternate electors, and of course, the voters of Minnesota. To all the students here today, and there are many of you, thanks especially to you for coming. Democracy is in your hands now, and you will soon shape your community, your state, and your country by exercising your right to vote. Please don't take that right for granted. Please don't. Your vote is your voice, and as some have said, failure to vote is not an act of rebellion, it is an act of surrender. When you're eligible to vote, stand up, step up, and be a voter. Thank you all. May God bless the great state of Minnesota and the United States of America. If there's no further business to come before this assembly, I would entertain a motion from one of the electors for adjournment signing aye. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. A motion to adjourn having been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. This meeting is adjourned. Please rise for the retrieval of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for refreshments in the hallway. Students who can and wish to, I will meet you back here in this room 15 minutes from now for discussion. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
No, we're good. Concerned about coming in? What about Hillary Clinton? She won the state. Law says that you must You have no other concerns besides that. Thank you. Pronounce your name for us, sir. What did you do? Pronounce your name.
What did you do to cast an invalid ballot?
I'll give you his contact. I have his contact.
Okay, yeah, that's good.